Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Today's topic is foreign trade zones, specifically our foreign trade zone. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's for, a little bit about how to use it, and we have a couple of great guests here to discuss that. Deborah Shannon, she's very much involved with this with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and Linda Braun from AMRI. It used to be Albany Molecular.
Yes.
For anybody who didn't recognize that. Oh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Somewhat of a technical topic,
Very
but
much so.
we have the right people. Let's start out with getting to know you two a little bit. Linda, you want to start?
I am the Import-Export Compliance Specialist at AMRI. I am also a licensed U.S. Customs broker. So I basically handle all of our imports, exports, all of our compliance, trade agreements, and also the administrator of our foreign trade zone.
So you're right in the middle of it.
I'm right in the middle of everything that's coming and going.
Great. And Deborah?
I'm Senior Planner with Capital District Regional Planning Commission. I've been there about 5 years now. And the Foreign Trade Zone is one of my main areas of work at this point in time.
When I said to Rocky we needed somebody, he said, you're the person.
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, fortunately for us.
Thank you.
So there was an article, I think, in Visions recently about expansion.
Yes, we spent the past year expanding and reorganizing our foreign trade zone. It now covers a 10-county area in the Capital District, and it's made the process of application much faster and more streamlined for companies. It should be a much cheaper endeavor to do an application.
That sounds like a good thing.
It is.
Well, I think the basic question is, what is a foreign trade zone?
A foreign trade zone is a secured fenced area, usually next to a port or an airport, that is considered to be outside of the US for customs purposes. So it's considered to be in international commerce. That means that imported items can be taken into this zone without formal entry into the United States and without the payment of customs duties or excise taxes.
So when they say anything to declare, you say?
Well, you still have the issue that if it's illegal to bring it into the country, it's still illegal to bring it into a foreign trade zone.
But is it, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages. Why should somebody want to use a foreign trade zone?
A foreign trade zone really benefits a company that is involved in importing items from overseas, typically either a large volume or very high-priced items that are coming into the country. It can either defer, eliminate, or reduce tariffs that they may pay on those items, and it can assist companies with streamlining their logistics. Things can be delivered directly to the company instead of sitting at a port waiting to be inspected. So saving on logistics saves on company money and time, and that frees up working capital. This can also, because of the elimination or reduction in duties, result in cost savings on the final product, making it more competitive with overseas manufacturing operations.
Well, there's that C word, competitive.
It does, and it's a win-win situation. The company gets some benefits from being in the foreign trade zone, and at the same time, the US gets to retain jobs that might otherwise be offshored.
And that is our goal here.
Yes, it is.
Everybody wants to help us export because we know that puts people to work. And how does a foreign trade zone help with exports? You answered half of it, but let's make sure it's clear.
Okay. Well, First of all, you have to import in order to use the foreign trade zone and get benefits from it. However, I mentioned that you could eliminate duties on imported items. If you import and then you export the items, you never pay any duty on it because it never enters the US Customs territory. So it can help you with those exports in that manner.
And I would say on that part, AMRI is a prime example of using the duty elimination. We import our raw material from overseas, bring it in through the foreign trade zone, and then export it, manufacture it, and export it back out. So in customs eyes, it's never actually entered the domestic commerce of the United States, and therefore there's the duty is eliminated through the foreign trade zone.
And one thing that people never really consider is we always hear imports are staggeringly high. We have a trade deficit. Unfortunately, imports are a necessary evil oftentimes for manufacturing to occur. Products are available cheaper overseas. If they're manufactured here into a final product, often those are higher paying jobs that we're keeping here and retaining in the US.
That makes a lot of sense. It's value added.
Correct.
It seems like what we've seen in the distant past, countries like China, which is where, well, I guess you can almost say China's going to hold the mortgage on the US if we keep going. But they used to take raw materials, and they're still taking raw materials by the train load, the plane load, and the shipping container load, and driving up the prices. And then they're turning around manufacturing it and sending it back to us. So in a way, they probably do the same thing very effectively and keep their prices lower.
I think every country is involved in the same type of business. What we're hoping is that we keep hearing about the cost of transportation increasing, and the US is one of the largest markets out there for finished goods. And so maybe with the Foreign Trade Zone program, we could see more manufacturing occurring domestically to be close to markets. For those finished
Right, we're always
products.
shipping food to other countries. And I guess we're getting a little low on some of the basic raw materials, but we'd really like to be able to put things together and sell them abroad.
Typically what we see is that people that import also get involved in exports because they become comfortable in overseas markets. Usually the first markets you're going to find exports to are going to be those that speak similar language, that have similar types of customs that are easy to understand legally. So typically our closest trading partners are Canada and Mexico. But then people do foray further afield, and hopefully if they're in the zone and importing, they'll also take advantage of the benefits from export.
Now, AMRI has gone through the process. Was it difficult to get involved?
AMRI has been a part of FTZ number 121, which is our local foreign trade zone. It's been, I think the board approved them in 1994. And that was before AMRI had acquired it. So it's kind of gone through a little bit of changes, but it's always been the same products running through our foreign trade zone with the same goal of the import to export.
Was it difficult? Was there a lot of paperwork? Did you
AMRI is not the one that actually did that, went through Capital Region Planning Commission.
I can answer
so
that a little.
that's great.
AMRI is actually a subzone, and they were established under the old framework for foreign trade zones. Because they're involved in manufacturing, they had to complete an extensive application process that looks at the domestic industry as a whole to ensure that using the foreign trade zone would not unduly harm another pharmaceutical company involved in the same business working domestically. They also had to do an application for the subzone itself, and these kinds of applications typically took 9 to 12 months to go through. With the new framework that we're under, a usage-driven site can be established within 30 to 45 days in 6 simple questions. Now, if a company wants to use the site for manufacturing, they would still have to go through a fairly extensive and rigorous manufacturing application.
Okay, but to simply use it, if you're putting, I guess, what is a manufactured product in terms of, how do you separate manufacturing from non-manufacturing in this case? I mean, maybe it sounds like a stupid question, but if you're just putting a couple things together, is that manufacturing?
It can be. According to the Foreign Trade Zones Board, processing or manufacturing occurs whenever you change the U.S. harmonized tariff schedule classification of an item,
So
which
if I
is a
changed an apple
six-digit
to
code.
a pie, would that be manufacturing?
It's called changing the essential character of the goods.
Okay.
You could you could clean and process, sort, repackage in a lot of different times, but then when you actually go and manufacture and you change it from, you know, A and B come together to make C, and changing that essential character, and then there's that harmonized tariff shift, then that is actually considered manufacturing.
So as an example, a cell phone has a 0 tariff attached to it. So if you were to bring in a finished cell phone from overseas, you would not pay any tariff on that product. However, the battery that's in the cell phone carries a 25% tariff attached to it, which is a fairly substantial tariff. So you could bring into the zone a cell phone battery and a case from 2 totally different areas of the world, put the 2 in a box together, and suddenly you have a cell phone, and you've reduced your tariff from 25% on the battery to 0 on the battery.
Okay.
By using your inverted tariff schedule through the zone.
That's great. So it really does make us more competitive to use these zones. Is there your AMRI? Tell us a little bit about AMRI for anyone who doesn't know what you do.
AMRI, we have our corporate offices are based in Albany, and then in Rensselaer we have our manufacturing and our foreign trade zone sites. And AMRI provides scientific services, products, and technologies that are focused on improving the quality of life. At the end of the day, what that basically means is we manufacture drugs, drug products, and work on discoveries that are going to go forward to use in large pharmaceutical companies and biotechs. So it's drug manufacturing and research and development.
And I think from many of our point of view, it's a company that we're proud to have in the area.
I think it's a very good company to have in the area. It has a lot of jobs in Rensselaer and Albany, and I think it's a little secret. Not a lot of people know of it, but they're doing very good things in both places.
Right. And we certainly want you to be successful. Otherwise, we
want
lose all that.
we want everyone in the Capital District to be successful.
Right. Is there anything you can't do in a foreign trade zone?
Well, I'd already mentioned that if it's illegal to do in the U.S., it's illegal to do in a foreign trade zone, because although you're outside of the U.S. customs territory for tariff and taxing purposes, you're still within the U.S.
It's not like a foreign consulate.
Correct. You still have to apply for any permits that are required from federal or state agencies. And if something would impact the health and safety of the community, it's not allowed. So, for example, you can manufacture fireworks in the United States.
You can?
You can.
Okay, I didn't know that.
However, if you applied to manufacture them at a facility, they're going to check to make sure that if the facility were to blow up or something, you're not going to harm anyone in the local community. And so if you applied to manufacture fireworks in a foreign trade zone, but your facility was not equipped correctly to protect health and safety, then that would be denied.
So you not only have laws like you can't murder people or use or have illicit drugs there, but anything which breaks regulations may also be not allowed.
Correct.
And you are still governed by the other government agencies. FDA is still, you know, if you are as chemical manufacturing or whatever, we're still governed by the FDA there. We don't have a free ticket to do whatever we choose within our subzone.
Because in a way, it's not the space itself, right? That's the foreign trade zone. It's kind of it's an overlay in a way of a specific area within a multi-county space. Because yes, it's a foreign trade zone, but you mentioned all these counties. I can't in my apartment or my home say I'm a trade zone.
Correct. What we have is a service area that is 10 counties in size. However, in order to create a foreign trade zone space, you have to either go into one of our magnet sites, which are industrial parks that have been pre-designated as foreign trade zone space, or you have to go through an application procedure with the board to be authorized to count your space as part of the foreign trade zone, usually now as a usage-driven site. In the past, we used to have subzones. It isn't something that's immediately there for everyone, and even once the zone has been established, you still have to go through an application process with US Customs that looks at inventory control, safety and security, to make sure that any product that you bring in is secured and isn't going to disappear, because potentially you're paying a tariff and duty on that product when it leaves the zone.
Okay. Now, in terms of costs, how do you decide if it's cost effective? Is there help?
You would undertake a cost-benefit analysis. On our website, we have links to 2 calculators that could be used that take a look at the product that you're bringing in, what you're paying in duty on those items, and what the finished product is, as to whether there's an inverted tariff potential benefit there. Then a company's going to have to look at what they see as a sufficient savings level to warrant moving further with a foreign trade zone. And it depends on the size of the company as to whether they have in-house the professional and technical skills that they need to be able to move forward with a foreign trade zone, or whether they will have to go and hire additional help.
Okay. And is it kind of like a startup situation where there are more costs in the beginning, but once you've establish yourself?
Well, it's different. There's more costs. There's more costs up front, and it being able to do, you do need software to be able to run and manage the zone and run and manage your inventory. You need to have software that you could communicate electronically with customs through ABI, which is automated broker interface. You need to have the software there, and it varies. You know, you could get a kind of off-the-shelf standalone system, or you could get a system that is tied in and integrated to your ERP system you're already using. Besides for all that cost, the personnel,
so that could vary wildly.
That could vary greatly from a glorified spreadsheet to a very intense program. And you also have the personnel to do it. Besides for those upfront costs, and you have to see what your savings are going to be through your analysis. But then after that, your first year, you could actually save a lot of money, have more cash flow, because besides for also doing your import to export, you're going to take your inventory that's on hand already, and that's already considered domestic status when it comes into your zone, and duty's already been paid on that. And when you go to ship or to export or make an entry into the domestic commerce of the United States, duty's already paid on that. So let's say that's 1 or 2 turns of your inventory that no money is being paid out on. So that could be for a duty savings for whatever your turn is. If it's 6 months, a year, no duty being paid for that time. So even though there is an upfront cost, there could be a greater cost savings for that initial year.
Which can only grow in the future.
It will eventually, once you decide which products you have moving in and out of the zone, it would pretty much stay level, the savings, unless your business grows or declines.
Okay.
Now, one thing that is an upfront cost that we haven't discussed yet is that when you apply to customs to activate, they're going to require a certain bond level, an insurance policy basically, that covers the costs and the risk associated with the merchandise that you're bringing in and not paying any duty on. If that merchandise disappears, then customs comes after your bond. So you really have to take a look very closely at your inventory control procedures and your security, and make sure that this is something you want to get into. And customs does come out every year to do an audit of your facility. So you have to consider whether all of the additional personnel expenses, the software costs, the bonds, and having customs on your premises is something that you really want to go through before you
I think you'll have to spell this out in simpler terms in one aspect. What did you mean when you said that the risk?
Well, if you just import items, you pay your duty immediately it hits the shore. You pay all of your merchandise processing fees once the product hits the shore. With a foreign trade zone, because it's considered outside of the US, the product sits there without you paying the US government any of those taxes
And so there
and fees.
would be a fee later that they're losing out on.
It could be.
But it might not be. Okay.
We did say this was technical.
Right.
If you are warehousing items and you're just distributing those items domestically, what you're actually doing is you're deferring those taxes that you would be paying.
Okay.
So as long as the merchandise sits in your warehouse and nobody's purchased those items, you're not paying out those taxes. But as soon as those products leave the foreign trade zone, those taxes become due. So that's what the US government is trying to protect.
Okay. But it also could be an advantage maybe that you're postponing the taxes. You get to use that money longer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You have to look at what the cost of money is to your organization. If you had to use that money for some other business, what would it cost you to borrow that money from a bank?
The interest on the duty deferred.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Now, we'd love it if more businesses use this and we export more and we increase our business. Maybe we even import more, but then we are able to sell more goods. How does a company even think about whether they might benefit from this in terms of their product? Whether are they too small? Is it the wrong product? Would anybody want their product in the rest of the world? How do they kind of think about this in broader terms where maybe they should be thinking globally?
Well, we don't want to really exclude anyone from consideration here by saying only certain products or only certain industries should be in a foreign trade zone. However, there are some considerations. Typically, it's medium to large size companies that are involved in foreign trade zones, because you typically have to import a fairly substantial amount of product or high value product in order to see savings of a significant enough amount to cover those extra costs and liabilities that you're going to have. As to how much of a savings you need, it's going to depend on the company and what they really see as a significant enough savings for them. Within the foreign trade zone industry, I've heard everything from $50,000 to $250,000 minimum first-year savings requirement before you would consider going into a foreign trade zone.
Mm-hmm. I've always heard the breaking point at least has to be $100,000 the first year to make it of savings to make it viable.
But what we have seen in the past few years is, with the economy the way it's been, that smaller savings are actually worthwhile for companies because they found it so difficult to borrow money that it was more advantageous for them to take on a foreign trade zone.
Okay.
And historically, foreign trade zones have been used by petroleum industry, pharma companies, and automobile industry. And those are the big three of foreign trade zones. And it's for inverted duty rates, saving of the merchandise processing fee, which we really haven't spoken about, and import to export for duty elimination. But just because those are the big three, and that's where it is, it doesn't rule out any company. Any company that's importing and has a slow turn on inventory with a high duty rate, or is importing to export, it's all something that it should be looked at closely and to see if there is a savings there. And if that savings balances out at the end of the day, after your inventory count and after your software and personnel to help keep the inventory and the processing straight. Mm-hmm. So,
as a follow-up to that, obviously you're here on the show. You're working to help companies go through this process. There must be companies out there that you believe would benefit from this.
Yes. We've had this talk before.
Explain.
There are definitely in our area some large companies involved in distribution that are not currently in our zone. We have some large manufacturers here too, producing items that are for domestic and foreign markets that could benefit from both a duty elimination for the products shipped overseas and also inverted tariff for products that are here. We have had quite a bit of interest since we reorganized the zone. I've heard from 10 companies in the last 3 months. The issue always becomes that they have to go through what can be a fairly extensive cost-benefit analysis for them, and that takes a while. Anything new always takes a while.
It will take a while, but also on the flip side, I think a lot of companies, when they hear foreign trade zone outside of the U.S., customs, audits, inventory, it sounds overwhelming at first when you first think of it. But once you understand how a foreign trade zone works and the benefits of it, it is not a complicated process. And with the right software to help a company, it's really, it keeps you, I always say at the end of the day, foreign trade zone makes you faster, better, cheaper than anybody that's not in a foreign trade zone. I will get my goods delivered to AMRI way before anybody else because we have direct delivery approval. That means while you're still waiting to go through exams, you're waiting for customs releases, my goods are on the road on their way up to Rensselaer. I say cheaper because I pay less on the duty, merchandise processing fee, and then all your brokerage costs. Instead of every time you have an entry coming into the U.S., you know, an entry through a broker could cost anywhere from $100, $150. That's, let's say you have 3 or 4 of those a week. Those add up pretty quick. And then I say that it's also better. Besides, for one thing, that when customs is keeping track of what you're doing to a degree, and they come in and want to keep track of your inventory, when at least invite them for your annual inventory, physical inventory, and your reporting and daily processing that goes through customs, that keeps you more compliant and it keeps you more secure. It's all good things at the end of the day. So it isn't anything to be worried about.
Mm-hmm. And some insurance companies will actually reduce their requirements because you're in a foreign trade zone and you are having to comply with the customs inventory control requirements. They feel safer,
more secure.
More secure.
What help is there for a company if they woke up one morning and said, "Why have we not looked into this?"
Well,
after they had FTZ dreams all night.
Right.
They can always contact me at CDRPC, and we can definitely walk them through what their specific industry is about, what kinds of products they're interested in bringing into the zone, whether they're importing from a country that has tariffs associated with it, because we do have a number of free trade agreements that often result in zero, that result in the zero tariff, or that you have to pay your duty if you export to them as well. As in Canada. We would have to go through the specifics of that particular company, talk about the different types of applications that we have and the fees associated with the different applications. We also have a National Association of Foreign Trade Zones. It's the only organization that represents foreign trade zone grantees, such as CDRPC, users such as AMRI, and consultants and operators of foreign trade zones. There are a large number of consultants that can assist in preparing a cost-benefit analysis. They can provide software assistance, inventory control assistance, and legal assistance to companies that are interested in a foreign trade zone. We have a website that's set up that has...
So it's other than CDRPC.org?
Correct. CDRPC.org has several pages worth of information on the basics of a foreign trade zone. It has links to the online calculators that can be used, and also links to others in the industry that might be of use to a company considering a foreign trade zone.
So they could email you, they could call you?
Correct. They can. They would call me at 518-453-0850, or email me at deb@cdrpc.org.
You can't beat that for easy.
No, you can't.
And I would also say that a good wealth of information, besides for the national organization, the NAFTZ, is Albany Customs. They, our port director, Drew Westcott, he is very knowledgeable about foreign trade zones. They will answer any question they can for you, and they are extremely helpful and want the companies to succeed.
So one should not be reticent because you just don't want to bother people or you think they don't have time.
No, we want to hear from you, and the earlier the better. Definitely Customs likes to be involved in the process as early as possible because they have to sign off on any company that wishes to participate. And everyone is willing to talk about the foreign trade zone and answer what-if scenarios without holding someone to something that they've said.
Fantastic. I want to thank you both for coming and helping out with this topic that wasn't particularly simple, but I'm sure it could be very
We just touched the
worthwhile.
very top
Very
of it.
top.
Right. Well, I think if we covered everything, it would be too much to remember anyway. They're going to have to
Yes.
get in a little at a time and find out if it's for them.
It is something worth looking into, though.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, that you tune in again next time. And until then, have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.